Hello students, today we're going to look at a couple of problems where you are having to solve either a log or an exponential, and they're going to be combined together now, so you're going to have to decide which way you need to solve them. So here are some tips. If the x is in the exponent, then you want to convert it to logarithmic form. Okay, so an example of that would be if you had 3 to the x power equals, let's say 81. Well, to get up to that x exponent would be to convert it into a log and then use your calculator. Okay. The second way is if the log is in the base, if the x is in the base, then you're going to raise it to the reciprocal power. Okay, and so what that's going to look like is if you have x to the, let's say, the 2/3 power, and it equals 16. Well, in order to solve for this x base here, you would raise both sides to the reciprocal power, which would be 3/2. The reason why we're raising it to the reciprocal power is because if you remember, a power to a power gets multiplied, and so this would be 6/6, which would cancel, and so you would just have x equals, and then you can go ahead and figure out what this is. Remember that the denominator is the radical, so it would be the square root of 16, which is 4, and then 4 cubed, which is 64. Okay, so those are the two different types of problems that you're going to have when you're solving exponentials. Okay, so let's look at this first problem. It says 3 to the 2x minus 1 equals 3.96. Okay, well, first off, look at where your x is. My x is in the exponent. Okay, so in order to get up to the exponent, I'm going to have to convert it to a logarithm. So to convert it to a logarithm, we're going to swirl, but remember you got to start with your base. So we're going to put our base in the basement. We're going to swirl around and say it's log base 3 of 3.96, and that equals 2x minus 1. Okay, well, from last night's last night's video, you can do this on your calculator, and remember that's by hitting alpha, window, and then it would be number 5. So you can type that into your calculator. So log base 3 of 3.96 is equal to approximately 1.25. Now I've rounded it there, but when you do this on your calculator, leave that answer in your calculator and then go ahead and finish out the steps of your problem. If I want to get x by itself, I would have to add 1. So using your calculator, add 1 to that previous answer, which would be approximately 2.25. I'm not going to round until I'm completely done with the problem. And then go ahead and divide by 2 on your calculator. So I'm going to do that right now. And then now you would go ahead and round it. Okay, so x is equal to, we're going to round it to the nearest hundredth, so that would be approximately 1.13 using my calculator. Okay, looking at this next problem, the x is in the base. So to get rid of my exponent, so that I will have the x just completely by itself, to get rid of this exponent, you need to raise both sides to the reciprocal power, which would be 1/6. Make sure that you're raising that 96 up to the 1/6 power. This will cancel, so you'll just have x. And then make sure when you type this in on your calculator, you're doing 96, raise it up to the 1/6 power. Don't just do 96 times the 1/6 power, because that's not the same thing. And just used my calculator, and that came out to be approximately 2.14. Again, if you don't have a graphing calculator at your house, just copy this down and you can practice using the calculator tomorrow. Okay, so now let's look at some log problems. When you're solving logs, the best way that you need to follow those steps. So the first thing you'd want to do is you'd want to condense, then you swirl, and then you solve. So condense means that it needs to be written as a single log. You cannot have the word log written more than once. If it is written more than once, then you need to condense it using your log properties. Okay? So on this particular problem, we do see that we have a single log. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to swirl it. So just remember, you always start with your base. So it's x, raise it up to the 3/5 power, and that equals 17.9. Okay, well, my x is my base, so that means to get rid of my exponent, I want to raise it up to the reciprocal power, which would be 5/3. So remember, you're raising this up to the 5/3 power. So when you type that in on your calculator, make sure you use the little caret key. So this cancels, so you have x equals, just use your calculator for that part, so 17.9 raised up to the 5/3 power is equal to approximately 122.49. We're going to round it to the hundredths. Okay, so looking at this next problem, it is a single log, so we know that we don't have to condense, but I want you to notice where the x is. My x is right here. Well, the x is already by itself, so hopefully I can do this on my own. Well, how would I do that? I would type it in on my calculator, and so I would do alpha window, and then do number 5, and then just type in the base and the 6 divided by 5. And you hit enter, and then you'll see that x is equal to, if I round to the nearest hundredth, then that's going to be 0.09 approximately. And there's your answer. Okay, this next example, we have log base 6 of x equals 6 times log base 6 of 2. One thing I want you to notice is that we do not have a single log, we have 2 logs. And these logs are on opposite sides of the equal sign. I need to move one of them over to the other side. So let's just move this whole thing over to the left side. And when we do that, it's going to become a minus. So we're going to have log base 6 of x minus 6 log 6 of 2. When we move it over to the left side, we're left with 0 on the right side. Sorry about my clock going off there. Okay, now you want to go ahead and condense this. Well, one thing I want you to notice is that this 6 out front, we can move that back up to be a power, okay? And then because I have minus here, then it would condense to a single log with it being divided. So I'm going to have the x on top, and then in the denominator I'm going to have 2 to the 6th power. If you want to go ahead and figure out what that is right now, you can. I'll do that in the next step. Okay? It's equal to 0. So notice where your x is. Your x is right here. So you are going to need to swirl. So you're going to start with your base, which is 6, raise it up to the 0 power, and that has to equal the x over 2 to the 6th power, which is 64. Okay, well, what does 6 to the 0 equal? Well, hopefully you remember that that equals 1, that anything to the 0 power is equal to 1. So what you can do here is you could multiply both sides by 64, because if you've got a divided by 64, then to get rid of that, you would need to multiply it. And so 64 times 1 is just 64, and that's equal to x. Okay? Now, somebody was asking me the other day, how can you check your answer? Well, to check your answer, you would just plug this in for x in the original problem. So if I plug that into the original problem, I'm going to have log base 6 of 64, and hopefully that's equal to 6 times log base 6 of 2. Well, when you type it in on your calculator, so I'm going to go to alpha window number 5, and I'm going to type in base 6 of 64. Comes out to be approximately 2.32111, etc. Okay? Well, let's see what this one equals. So 6 times the log base 6 of 2, and you'll see when you type that into your calculator that that equals the exact same thing. Okay? So that checks off, and so you know that that is your correct answer. Okay, on this next problem, I want you to try it on your own, and then when you're ready to check your answer, just hit play. Okay, check your answer. This is what I got. I got 4 divided by 31. It's an ugly decimal, so we're just going to leave it as a fraction. Okay, hope this was helpful. Please come to class tomorrow with questions, and I will help you. Have a good evening.